Following what will likely be the final game of the Minnesota Vikings 2023 season versus the Detroit Lions, there's going to be plenty of talk about roster moves that need to be made. What should the Vikings do as far as draft picks, free agents? Should they bring back Kirk Cousins? Should they bring back Daniil Hunter? Positions of need, drafting a quarterback, J.J. McCarthy versus Michael Penix Jr. All that will be said and talked about over the next couple of months. However, none of it will matter in the grand scheme of things unless two things happen. Number one, the front office. This is a crucial offseason for this organization. So for the GM, the scouting department, everybody that has their hand in the cookie jar of player personnel, don't get cute. Don't outsmart yourselves. Just do your jobs. You've had some good hits that are worth mentioning. The TJ Hawkinson trade, signing Ivan Pace Jr. as an undrafted free agent, drafting Jordan Addison. That's pretty good. However, you've had some bad hits as well. Marcus Davenport barely played at all this season. I don't know what's worse, the fact that he didn't play, and it's not like you couldn't see this coming. This man has had a history of injury issues his entire career. I don't know what's worse, him not playing much at all this year for the Vikings, or him not being on the team next year and still carrying a $6.8 million dead cap hit. Dean Lowry, you signed him on as a starter. He's been on IR the last couple of weeks, but respectfully, even when he was healthy, he wasn't a factor. You go to the 2022 draft class, the guy that you traded down 20 spots for, Lewis Seen, has been doing nothing but collecting dust. Andrew Booth Jr., your second round pick, doesn't play. Ed Ingram has turned out to be a solid offensive lineman. Brian Asamoah doesn't play. Caleb Evans is shaky at best. And Ty Chandler is an okay running back. On a solid team, he's a good RB2. But we've been forced to use him as the RB1 because Alexander Mattison is not a quality starter. That's really all you have going for you from that 22 draft class. I'm not here to rage out on that again. I've done that plenty. I'm bringing it up again as far as a reminder of what could go wrong. You can learn from your mistakes. Don't outsmart yourselves. Instead of thinking about dreamers on your roster, focus on getting football players. Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, he's big into analytics. Don't Python your way into bad draft picks, bad signings. Number two, coaching. Just as important as it is with players, I believe it's equally as important with front office executives and coaches to show some sort of progression on a year-by-year basis. You need to get better and better in your role as you go. We're in year 2 of the Kevin O'Connell coaching experience. I challenge anybody out there to identify one building block that KOC has established as part of a foundation that has shown progression from year 1 to year 2 offensively. Talking about coaching, not hashtag culture, not any feel-good speeches that you can find on PBS, coaching. I think you're going to be scrambling in your brain forever to think of just one. Because I would argue that this team offensively has no identity. They're not aggressive, oftentimes sloppy, oftentimes, not even oftentimes, most of the times, they're submissive. KOC has been better at talking than taking action. Now, with that said, to be fair, he's had to deal with injuries. Major injuries on the offensive side of the ball. And that absolutely stinks. More on that in just a second. Introducing to you Mike McDaniel. You know who he is, the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Also an offensive-minded head coach, also in his second year. The Dolphins' talent is comparable to Minnesota's. They both have a top 2 wide receiver as their number 1 option. They both have a dynamic playmaker, a guy that can stretch the field as their wide receiver 2. And they both have quarterbacks that can put up big numbers. Talked about the foundation or lack thereof offensively for the Vikings. Look at the foundation in Miami. Up-tempo, super aggressive offense. They show no mercy. They blow the doors off of opponents that they should beat. The problem that they've struggled with this year is that formidable opponents, teams that are equally as good as them, if not better, they've struggled. I think they'll win a playoff game this year. But what we need to see next year in year 3 is, okay, you can beat the teams you're supposed to beat, but can you compete with the rest of the league? That remains to be seen. But still, going from year 1 to year 2, we've seen some progression with Mike McDaniels and the Miami Dolphins. Why do I bring them up? If you compare Mike McDaniel and the Dolphins with Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings offensively, and we're just talking about statistically through week 8, before Kirk Cousins got hurt. Scoring by quarter. Miami, first quarter, 8th best. Second quarter, number 1. Third quarter, 2nd best. Fourth quarter, 8th best. Red zone scoring percentage, number 1 in the league. Compare that to the Vikings. In the first quarter, 27th. Second quarter, 9th. Third quarter, 3rd. Fourth quarter, 28th. Red zone scoring, 22nd. You see the difference between these two teams? It's simple. The Dolphins, from start to finish, they're on cruise control. They don't let up. And when they get in the red zone, they're the best in the league. However, the Vikings, they stumble their way clumsily into the first quarter. They play catch up in the second and third, and they choke in the fourth. And when they get into the red zone, they don't have enough creativity offensively to punch it in for 6. And with the talent that you have on offense, that's absolutely ridiculous. And you can say, well, you know what? Towards the end, through week 8, you didn't have Justin Jefferson for a couple of games. Okay, fine. Even when you had Justin Jefferson before he got hurt, the Vikings, they were 1-4 after starting the year off 0-3 with Justin Jefferson healthy and on the football field. Stop caping for this dude, man. Stop coming up with excuses for why nothing is his fault. KOC, stop going into press conferences saying that, hey, it's on me. I got to be better. Stop talking about how you need to be better and just be better. But quite honestly, after 2 years, because from week 8 or week 9 on out, you were playing musical chairs with quarterbacks. However, your offense is directly responsible for not winning 2 winnable games against Denver and Chicago. But after 2 years of the KOC experience, why am I supposed to believe that you're going to flip everything that you've been bad at? You're going to flip everything upside down and all of a sudden be great. I don't think he is. The solution here, somebody else needs to call plays. Somebody else needs to be responsible for the offensive scheme and design and personnel usage, and KOC just be the head leader where you're encouraging people, motivating players, whatever it is that you got to do. I don't care if it's Wes Phillips. I don't care if it's you find a different offensive coordinator. Somebody else needs to be responsible for the offensive side of the ball and their execution on the football field during games. If that doesn't happen, I'm telling you, bro, if KOC goes into next year and, hey, I figured it out and I'm still going to call plays, it doesn't matter who we draft. It doesn't matter who we sign. This has been very disappointing for him. I think the only option for KOC at this point is to delegate offensive responsibilities to somebody else.